Hi there, my name's Bradley, I'm from First Page Autos, and today you join me in our Rover 827Si. So this is a facelift Mark II, as some people call them, Rover 800. So it was introduced in the early 1990s, whereas the original Rover 800 was released in 1986. So this being the SI model is a fairly basic spec, comes with a sunroof, and an automatic gearbox, which would have been specified at the factory, and not much else. It doesn't come with air conditioning or many other extras. You do get 4 electric windows all the way around the car, electric mirrors, get a nice radio, which is the original Rover radio and works absolutely perfectly, and not much else other than that. That was the beauty of buying cars in the 1990s, was the fact that you had a range of engines to choose from, which in the 800 would have been a couple of diesels. I'm not sure exactly on the specs of the diesels, but you would have had a 2-litre petrol, a 2.5-litre KV6 petrol, and then this, which is the Honda 2.7 V6. So this engine would have come in the equivalent Honda Legend that this car was co-designed with. Now the 800 was the first properly joint venture between Rover and Honda, where both teams would input their thoughts into the design process. There were the original Rover 213s and 216s, which were just, I think they were the Honda Concerto or Ballard. I think they're the Ballard. Don't hold me to that. I'm sure people will correct me in the comment section. But there were collabs between Austin Rover, as they were known at the time, and Honda. However, this was the first one where both companies had sort of equal input as to how the car would turn out. Now the Rover engineers did a hell of a lot of work on the suspension and steering and the actual driving feel of the car, and obviously the interiors of them, because that was the market as to where they shined. And this car is no exception. Even though it's 30 years old, the automatic gearbox in here changes as smooth as anything, and the Honda V6 is ultra smooth. Now those other engine options that you could have got, the 2-litre petrol 4-cylinder that you could get in these was well renowned and a very strong unit. In a lot of the 800s that you'll come across today still have that the 2-litre in there. I believe it was the O series, but again, don't hold me to that. Now the 2.5s were the KV6, and they were very much a brand new engine for the Rover 800, and because of that they actually got quite a bad reputation. They were basically handmade, and because of that they were, you know, a little bit brittle, and in classic Rover style they released them and then tested them on the public. Now the 2.7 in this specific car would have been the engine back at the time to choose, as it was well renowned and obviously in the Honda Legend, which this car was a sister car with. It still drives like a completely modern car. It doesn't feel like it's wanting for power, or, you know, it rides harshly or anything like that. If anything, this rides much better than a lot of modern luxury cars. As I said in my P6 review, the thing about the modern luxury car is that it has to do everything. It has to be sporty as well as luxurious, and that in itself leads to compromises. This was made specifically to be a comfortable, relaxed cruiser, and with that V6 in it, I've got to say that it works. It works superbly well and pulls amazingly. Now it's not the most powerful engine. The 2.5-litre was the most powerful that you could get in that by about 5 or 6 horsepower. But the smoothness and the reliability of the 2.7's won out over that in the long run. Now the 800 was the car that replaced the Rover SD1, and the SD1 obviously won the Car of the Year award when it was first released. It was absolutely loved by enthusiasts and still is to this day. But the 800 then had to follow that. And what they did is, with this car, you can see it quite clearly, is they followed a lot of the design cues from that car. So the fastback, which this one is, looks a lot like an SD1. It's more of an evolution rather than a revolution. Now this car comes in Caribbean blue, which is an amazing name for a colour, but it looks amazing in sunlight, and yeah, it's one of those colours that has sort of gone out of favour a little bit, and now with modern cars, especially sporty ones, you can see this colour about a hell of a lot more often. Right, so seatbelt's working as it did in the MGB. Go, go, go. Acceleration test, here we go. Ooh, that does go well. That was 50 miles an hour. That was it's quite brisk. Now the interior of this car it's incredibly 90s in style. It's very much, you know, you've got yourself a shelf to put, I don't know, sandwiches, so anything you really want up there, probably just sweets and toot. But yeah, it's cream with sort of a walnut finish. I believe that this is actually real wood, but they've somehow made it almost look plastic, which is typical of a 90s car in itself. The gauges are incredibly clear and easy to read, and this one has only done just over 65,000 miles. So as you can imagine, it's not really worked hard in its life, and you can tell that by driving it. It's still got the classic dash lift on the dashboard just here that a lot of the Rover 800s had. But everything else in here is incredibly well screwed together. 4 electric windows all around the car. And electric mirrors. So for the time, those sort of things wouldn't have been a standard option on a lot of cars. So Rover, I think, got the balance between, you know, what you need and what you want quite well. It's you know, you haven't got toys on here that, you know, could go wrong, which is always a benefit when you're buying a 30-year-old car. Now the back seats aren't massive, even though this is quite a big car in size. They're big enough for 2 adults or possibly 3 children all across the back. And they're in the same sort of velour-y cloth that you have up front. Now the boot on this car is huge, as you would expect it to be on a car of this size, and comes with a parcel shelf to obviously cover all of your load floor. So the actual ergonomics of this car, the living with it day to day, I think you could probably drive this every single day if you wanted to. So the relationship between Rover and Honda on this specific car was not the best, because what happened is obviously Rover and Honda worked together to design it, and Honda wanted to take the lead on the project, which is understandable. Rover didn't have the best reputation for building quality products at the time, that's for sure. But what ended up happening is you actually ended up getting a very, very comfortable, relaxed cruiser that goes incredibly well. It is good. That rides incredibly smoothly. You've got incredibly light steering, and that was all the Rover engineer side of things. Whereas Honda obviously oversaw the actual putting together of the car and sent engineers over to Rover in order to oversee the project. Now this specific car has only had 3 owners from new. It's got a complete wad of paperwork, so it's got full service history from new. It's got all of the old tax discs with the car, so it's been absolutely loved all of its life. And as you can tell, being 30 years old now, and the fact that it's still on the road speaks for itself, really. Now, I must admit that I'm a massive fan of big Rovers anyway, and my dream car is an SD1 Vitesse. But if you're, you know, maybe your budget that wouldn't quite stretch to something like an SD1 Vitesse, this is a perfect way of getting into classic car ownership. It's old enough that you won't see one coming the other way on the road, and rare enough for that. Its character and style get a lot of looks. It's something that you can take to shows and, you know, easily fit in. And it's still something that you can drive every single day quite happily if you wanted to. So thank you for watching this. This was our Rover 827Si. If you've got any more questions on this car, all of the details are on the website, but feel free to call us on our mainline number. And I'll see you again soon.